Alrighty. Hello and welcome, everyone. Yeah, nice. We are back with another live stream on this channel. Um, Last week we didn't do any lives, also because there was a lot of stuff going on. This week I have a live stream for you, and in this live stream, I hope that the audio is correct and good. And in this live stream, I want to talk about a few things that are related to finding a tinnitus cure, what the current research says, also a little bit about what I talked about in my last video last Friday. I talked about the German S3 guidelines, and I want to go a little bit into those guidelines. So Germany, and I think probably a lot of other countries also have this. There is a guideline for every single disease or symptom. So for cancer, certain cancer, you have a guideline, treatment guideline, right? So that the doctors, always updated on what the treatment guidelines is. And there in Germany, of course, we also have a treatment guideline. So first of all, please let me know whether you can hear me correctly. That would be really important for me. Again, if my microphone is okay, then please let me know. Just write it in the comments very briefly. That'd be fantastic. I will check myself again here with the sound very briefly, but it seems to be looking okay. But if you could let me know if it sounds good for you, because I am not listening to the stream somewhere, that'd be much appreciated. So just drop in the comments very quickly if the sound is fine, if you can hear me well. If you want to, also drop me in the comments where you're from. As usual, I set myself. Hi Ariel, thank you for letting me know. That's great. That sounds good. Thank you for letting me know. As usual, we will have questions and answers. So if you have questions, you can just put them in the chat, and I'll be answering them one by one, while I also talk about, approaches to a current cure, a little bit about what the German S3 guideline says about tinnitus treatment, because I'm also working as a consultant for the network Hearing Health in Germany. We are aiming ourselves at building a sustainable future for audiologists in Germany, because OTC hearing aids and like these chains, they all just want to fit the most expensive hearing aids and don't really want to do proper audiological care. So in their network Hearing Health, I'm a consultant, and I help them a little bit also with the tinnitus stuff. And of course, in that network Hearing Health here in Germany, we talk a lot about the guidelines, and that's why I wanted to, go through you guys a little bit with what are approaches to a tinnitus cure, why it is so freaking difficult to come up with a proper cure, what the reasons are for that, and also what approaches to a cure might look like. But again, at the same time, why I do believe that habituation absolutely and 100% is a cure for tinnitus. A lot of people just say habituation is just not hearing it anymore, or not perceiving it as much anymore. But I think it is more. So if you weren't bothered by your tinnitus in the first place anymore, wouldn't that be very close to a cure, right? If you just had, excuse me, if you just had tinnitus, but you wouldn't be bothered about it. And I think that's a very valid phenomenon, and that's what we call habituation. And I have achieved it, and a lot of the people that I'm working with and people in our club have achieved it. So I think today I want to talk to you guys also about not only what current approaches to a cure exist there, what Germany says, and really talk about those guidelines a little bit as well, but also talking about why habituation can absolutely be a cure for your tinnitus. And as usual, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today here on this live stream. If you have any questions, as I said at the start, as usual, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. I usually also make community posts. Maybe we can do a poll for the next couple of lives, so you guys can let me know what topics you would want me to discuss. In the club, we do tinnitus and finding joy. Tomorrow, the second event of how you can find joy despite tinnitus and help your brain habituate. But let's start with getting into the things that I think are relevant for us to talk about today. why is it so difficult? So when we approach finding a cure for tinnitus, yeah. So when we say like, okay, what are the modalities? We need to understand, and we need to look at, okay, in order to cure something, we need to understand where it's coming from. And tinnitus is more of a brain problem than it is an ear problem, right? Well, I mean, yes, often and most likely for most people, that's at least the prevalence, shows that most people develop some form of hearing loss, age-related or noise-related, sometimes otosclerosis or other medical conditions related. But that leads to the fact that the hearing doesn't work as when we are younger and we don't have hearing loss yet. That's absolutely normal. And when that hearing loss happens, there is, I could go share my screen, but you can just easily read this on Wikipedia. How the hearing works is we have these little hearing hair cells, outer hair cells and inner hair cells. And these outer hair cells transmit over, like they are in a fluid, and they vibrate a little bit like you'd say like seaweed in the sea, right? Like this, they move like this. So when sound comes on into your inner ear, right, there's a sound wave. It makes these little hair cells. It makes them move, and then there is the fluid that moves and then transmitted to the inner ear hair cells. And what happens when we have hearing loss is more and more of these hair cells stop, so they don't move as much anymore with the auditory input. However, the brain thinks, since there is sound coming on, there should also be sound in these certain frequencies coming on that you're now missing, where the hair cells don't transmit sound anymore. And therefore, well, that's at least the current theory. We don't know for sure if this will be the theory forever. There's been a lot of theories disproved also in physical and quantum physics and stuff like that. So we don't know whether this will be the theory forever. But the theory for now is that tinnitus is a little bit like a phantom pain in a limb. Yeah. So the brain says, well, there should be a sound, but it's not there anymore. So I'm going to create it. So your brain literally creates tinnitus in the absence of the frequencies that those hair cells that you used to be able to hear, the frequencies, at least that's for most people the cause of their tinnitus. That's why your brain creates tinnitus. Because your brain also doesn't know, well, why is there no sound anymore? That in the absence of that sound, your brain creates tinnitus. And that's why it's also so incredibly difficult to treat it, because the brain creates a perception of sound. It's, yes, of course, it is linked to hearing loss, and yes, stress can sometimes exacerbate it, and yes, some medical conditions also, and yes, there's also a pulsatile tinnitus, yes, but the underlying and most common condition for chronic tinnitus is, in fact, the hearing loss, and then the reason that your brain is, decoding the sound that's not arriving and saying there should be something, and that's why it presents tinnitus. That's why you listen to tinnitus, and that's why it is so incredibly difficult to find a cure for something that is not a problem in the ears, but rather a brain problem. Now, hear me out. It's not a dangerous brain problem, like a phantom sound, a phantom pain in your limb. For example, when you have a broken bone or something, and then even though your bone's healed up, there can still be phantom pain, right? Because your nervous system remembers it. The phantom pain itself is not dangerous at all. It's just uncomfortable. And the same is true for tinnitus. Tinnitus itself in your brain is not dangerous, 0% dangerous. What is dangerous, of course, is a depressive disorder and anxiety. It's also not dangerous, it's just uncomfortable. And when we don't treat a tinnitus properly and hearing loss properly, then yes, we have early onset cases of dementia, because what happens when we don't treat hearing loss properly is we have less input in the brain. And when we have less input in the brain, then the brain sort of like says, okay, I can't hear that much anymore, social isolation, and so on and so forth. And therefore we say untreated hearing loss may lead to dementia. But it's absolutely the wrong thing, and I've said this on his channel multiple times, to directly correlate tinnitus with dementia. That's not true. The pure symptom of experiencing tinnitus does not mean that you're developing or dementia or that you have a brain problem. Yes, there are very rare cases in which there are acoustic neuromas, so a tumor in the inner ear, super, super rare. It rarely ever happens. And in a condition where 30% of the people have tinnitus, those acoustic neuromas are incredibly rare. Nevertheless, it does happen, and there are cases where that generates the tinnitus, right? So it's really, really important to notice that there are so many different reasons for why people deal with tinnitus, but the one reason that causes and affects most people, hearing loss-based tinnitus, is difficult to treat because it is a brain problem and not an ear problem. And this already leads me to the first fact, the first point. There is a lot of asking me about, for example, the stem cell treatment, and it's been talked about a lot, like the stem cell treatment to treat the hearing loss, and then to regrow these stem cells, because there are certain species, for example, fish, and I think young chicken, they can regenerate lost hearing. And a few years ago, I was at a conference from the Hearing Loss Association of America in Minneapolis, and there was the lead director of the Mass INE at that time, and they were talking about doing all these studies on monkeys, but also on fish and on chickens, and to see how they would be able to regenerate their hearing cells, right? These little hair cells, to so that your hearing comes back, because that is the most prominent treatment to get your hearing back completely. And then hopefully, that's at least what these treatment modalities hope for. As soon as your hearing comes back, your tinnitus reduces or disappears. However, preliminary results from those studies suggest that while your hearing may get better, that's fantastic, it doesn't always completely eliminate the tinnitus. So some people might still have a little bit of, or you might still have a little bit of tinnitus, although your hearing is nearly restored. Maybe not completely, but it is a lot better than it was before through this stem cell treatment. So what I'm always saying is also, tinnitus is incredibly individual, and I've seen people with very low tinnitus react very severely to it, and I've seen people with very loud tinnitus not react to it at all, or basically very little, like myself, for example, right now, right? Being deaf in one ear, having this hearing aid, and the severe tinnitus in my remaining right ear is quite severe, I would say. Yeah, I'm a relatively severe case with different frequencies neighboring each other, right? I don't only have one tinnitus frequency. And it's incredibly important to say, like, even if you would, cure your hearing loss, even if you're left with a little bit of tinnitus, then you can still not be habituated and still have big problems due to your tinnitus. So my opinion is like, oh yes, it would be great to have my hearing back, but if there are, for example, big side effects, I wouldn't consider it, right? If I have to fear that I'm getting some sort of brain tumor or something else, then I would be like, you know what, I prefer not to do it, because I prefer to, just wear my hearing aid and maybe eventually get a cochlear implant or something. So this is the first treatment modality that, is very promising, because it would help a lot of people reverse their hearing loss. And of course, natural hearing is always nicer than hearing aids. So make sure when you go to loud concerts, loud places, do wear your hearing protection, because it is nicer to keep the hearing that you have than having to get hearing aids, because the sound is just not the same. And I can say that absolutely from experience, although I've never been able to hear on 2 ears. So I've also never been able to experience surround sound in the movies or something like that. But there are 3 main points to why tinnitus is incredibly difficult to cure. The first one is, like, it's different for everyone, that we already talked to. Traditionally loss, like hearing loss, noise trauma, stress, or very rarely neurological conditions, right? Then the second one is, there is no single damaged organ to fix. It's not like some organ is not working properly and therefore you need to fix, right? Treatments like hearing aids, for example, can help. You hear more from the outside world, and therefore your tinnitus perception is lowered, but they don't cure tinnitus in that sense either. And then the third one is neuroplasticity plays a huge role, because, as I said at the start, we're dealing with a brain problem and not an ear problem. Billy, I'm going to answer your question in 1 second. I want to finish off this first round of why it's so difficult to find a cure and understanding the causes of tinnitus a little bit more before I answer your question, and then I go into what science says about the current treatment modalities, okay? And neuroplasticity plays such a big role, because when we start dealing with bothersome tinnitus, then why do we have bothersome tinnitus, and why there are people fully habituated who experience their tinnitus, but they don't experience it as bothersome? Well, it's because these people very likely haven't been told by their ENT, there's nothing you can do. They've gone around on the internet researching, and the internet says it's terrible. People do all kinds of things to themselves, and they don't delete the comments, and you won't be able to live with it. And when you think all of this, and then you feel an anxiety reaction in your body, and then your brain says, oh, look how I'm feeling because of this tinnitus. And then, of course, your brain says, oh, right, people are right on the internet. This is terrible. And then that perpetuates, and that actually gets you only stuck in this fight or flight cycle. Whereas, other people who are fully habituated and who have non-bothersome tinnitus, they might be at the start also with this, but eventually neuroplasticity plays a key role, meaning that the brain can absolutely learn to deprioritize the input of tinnitus, right? So it's a little bit like I always say, it's a little bit like when you get bitten by a dog, you will think, okay, dogs are dangerous, and you will cross the street and not be walking close to the dogs anymore when there are any on the street. But you can also learn that not all dogs are dangerous, and that it really doesn't come down, when it comes down to that, it is more your fear than the dogs really being dangerous. So you can reset your learning, you can learn new languages. All of this is neuroplasticity and the ability to relearn that it's not dangerous. And that's why people who are habituated, they have a relationship with tinnitus, that it's not important. It's part of their body sounds, like your heartbeat. When you hear it, it's most of the time not a bad thing either. Or when you hear your breath, most of the time we don't tune into your breath or our heartbeat because it happens naturally. But if we want to, we can. And tinnitus is no different. Tinnitus is a part of the human symptoms that we perceive when being alive, right? So if at all, it's a symptom that you're not 10 feet under yet. So these 3 points are very important. And I want to go and talk to and answer Billy's question. So Billy says he was prescribed benzodiazepines for 6 years and came off them 8 months ago. The withdrawal has been awful. He developed tinnitus about 3.5 months ago. It's so hard to deal with going through this. Yeah. Peach says, Billy, I have tinnitus for the past 3 months. Went crazy to say the least. Went to ENT, ER, had MRI done, no answer. So then decided to live. I ignore it. Today it's 50% less loud and I function well in life. Nice. That's habituation at its best. And Billy, I want to say we have members in our club as well. To mention Rick, he had exactly the same story that you're sharing. And he has been on benzodiazepines for a long time. He also had withdrawal, but he also had tinnitus. And through the withdrawal, the tinnitus got a lot worse for him. I'm happy to report that he says that he is 90% better. Sleep was a big issue for him. He's sleeping fine now. He feels like he's been claiming his life back since last autumn when he joined the club. I can only recommend, if you want to, you could check it out. I posted and pinned a link for you guys in the chat. And the second or the third thing, the join our amazing program, 7 days for free. That's the third link where I, tell you also, because I'm getting into treatment modalities right now, but one of the treatment modalities is acceptance and commitment therapy, which does pretty much what Peach says. You live and you learn to live and you learn to deal with the negative thoughts and anxiety reaction that is there. And then you learn to sleep better, to be more concentrated and focus again. And then, it's very important that you learn the tools and tips and tricks that you can in order to facilitate a seeding ground, basically, where your brain naturally learns how to habituate. Because as we will see, and as I shared last week in my video, I did a little bit of a breakdown of the German S3 guidelines for chronic tinnitus treatment. So it is the German ENT Association's guidelines for the treatment of chronic tinnitus, meaning tinnitus that has been perceived for longer than 3 to 6 months and it hasn't disappeared. It is absolutely possible to habituate when you have a dysregulated nervous system and increased anxiety from the withdrawal. Absolutely. It is 100% possible. What we need is a combination of understanding your symptoms, grounding your nervous system, like we have a lot of relaxation exercises and stuff in the club, and also learning that all of what you experience is very painful, but it is absolutely normal and part of the human condition, right? So you're not like some weird monster or something that's going through something that no one else is going through. What you're going through is very normal. A lot of people go through that. And you just need the right strategies and tools and support in order for your brain to habituate. And I always say, like, if you're human and if you have brain, you can habituate. And, to that point, a few weeks ago, I always get this again. Someone said, but there's a study that 20% cannot habituate. I say, that is not true, because you didn't, carry out the study long enough. So if it's a 6-month study and 80% are habituated after 6 months, then what's with the rest of the 20%? Doesn't mean that they never habituated. Maybe just took them 2 more months, but you didn't include that in your study design. So habituation, if you're a human and you have a brain, then habituation is possible for each and every single one of you. Like, you're capable to learn a language, you're capable of learning how to drive, you're capable of learning a new skill, you're capable of learning how to, build a house or really do anything, painting, or you're capable of literally doing anything. And this YouTube channel is an educational YouTube channel, and I want to teach you how to habituate, right? So if you're human, if you have a brain, then you can habituate. And now I'm going to get into what Germany, the German ENT Association, recommends for tinnitus treatment. And rather, let me start with what German ENT Association doesn't recommend. They don't recommend supplements, ginkgo biloba, zinc, and magnesium. No proven direct effectiveness for tinnitus treatment, although magnesium is shown to be is beneficial for your sense of hearing and for sleep, etc., but has no direct effect on tinnitus. Neuromodulation devices is still very experimental. The study designs don't provide consistent enough results to mention it as a recommendation, so they're not recommended in their tinnitus treatment. Antidepressants and medication can help with anxiety, won't cure tinnitus. Can help to, if you have a depressive disorder and you have a difficulty at the moment, well, obviously not for Billy, who's been tapering off the benzos. You don't want to start the benzos, because then you get this attachment, right? So it won't cure tinnitus either. And in the long run, you need to learn that tinnitus is absolutely not dangerous, and that your brain it's absolutely safe to tune it out. But if your brain thinks your tinnitus is an intruder who's going to rob your place, then of course he's going to sound the alarm all the time, right? So that's the other thing that's not recommended for treatment. Sound therapy and masking. Sound therapy and masking is one of the biggest hoaxes around, because it also creates the biggest money. And in the German ENT Association guidelines, it says sound therapy and masking can be useful for short-term relief, but doesn't eliminate tinnitus. And if at all, can create further obstacles to habituation, as a person gets sort of like pegged to masking all the time, and then the underlying emotional reactivity is not disappeared. So it doesn't eliminate tinnitus. It's a temporary quick fix at best. But why is it so prominent? Because I can sell you $3,000 worth of hearing aids. And why are the most successful tinnitus channels all driving you into a program where they can sell you $3,000 worth of hearing aids, even if you don't have an indication for hearing aids? That's freaking sad, in my opinion. Very freaking sad. So yeah, my program is a fraction of a price of $3,000. And of course, my one-on-one coaching is a little bit more expensive, because me spending my personal time, my therapist also is not a cheap guy, for example. But for example, our community starts at 47 euros a month for the basic subscription. And if you compare that to $3,000 of hearing aids, being prescribed to someone who has no hearing loss and doesn't really need hearing aids, then I think that is a scam. I'm not saying I'm not grateful for the people who do YouTube channels and who also tell people that CBT is important and stuff. But on a large scale, to give people hearing aids for very, very, very high amounts of money, to do that on a large scale, and but knowingly that the treatment guidelines in most biggest countries is absolutely ridiculous, right? So yeah, my personal go-to is definitely not sound therapy and masking. There's a final point, which is a little bit more controversial: tinnitus retraining therapy. I've had people who said they were benefiting from it. Some people say it works, but for some people it takes ages, 12 to 24 months, and it's not a cure either. So therefore, in the German treatment guidelines, TRT is also not especially mentioned as helpful. And just to go very, 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 very quickly into it, You know, the guidelines do recommend CBT and acceptance and commitment therapy, and I think acceptance and commitment therapy is even 1%, 100%, not 1%, 100% better, because as soon as you learn that, you know, your tinnitus, right, the physiological sound, you know, this thinking that Min says, you know, we want silence, and that's all we want, and we want it now. And if no one else can give this to us, then, well, you get silence. At some point in your life, after your life, you will get silence, total silence, all of us, 100%. We will get silence. But it's when you get that silence, you also have silence from everything else. So it's really, really, really important to know that you can still live your life even with full-on tinnitus. And acceptance and commitment therapy tells us that, you know, yes, there are thoughts and feelings about our tinnitus, and yes, they may be very painful, but this sound that is just here is one thing. And then there are thoughts around the sound and feelings in your body. Those are 3 different categories: sound, thoughts, and feelings. But those combined make it seem like this huge thing where your brain interprets, oh, I'm in arousal, I'm in fight or flight. So if I'm in fight or flight, this thing which caused fight or flight, no, it's not this thing caused fight or flight. What caused fight or flight is a combination of things. You had tinnitus for a while, and then you went onto Google and you see what people write, and then you extrapolate from that it's going to go the same way for you. Then you detect anxiety in your body, then the anxiety rises, and then you feel this anxiety and you say, oh, my tinnitus is causing me anxiety. But it's not your tinnitus that caused you anxiety in the first place. It's not your tinnitus that caused you anxiety in the first place. And that's incredibly important to mention. So apart from CBT and ACT, the guidelines also mention education and counseling. Understanding tinnitus reduces the fear and the perception. So if I know the person, then it's much easier to deal with it. If you call it by its name, it's much easier to understand that, you know, your brain doesn't need to pay so much attention. It is an overshoot reaction of going into fight or flight all the time. Yeah. So then the final one, and this one is only if there is a clinical or at border subclinical hearing loss indicated, hearing aids. And hearing aids improve your overall sound perception, but they don't cure tinnitus. If I take my hearing aid out, even the speech that I'm talking is 60% less intense, and my tinnitus is a lot more prominent. Therefore, when I put my hearing aid back in, then I have nearly the whole range of speech understanding and frequencies that are beneficial for my brain to hear more, and therefore have less volume in tinnitus, less perceived volume and intensity in tinnitus. And then my brain can focus on the other things. However, at night, I take it out, and then of course it's quiet, and that's where you need the good old term habituation again. Because when you are habituated and you have nothing to fear from tinnitus, and you have conditioned your brain that it is normal and possible and natural to fully sleep a night despite the presence of your tinnitus, then your brain learns that too. And then you know that, you know, sleeping well and tinnitus can absolutely go together as well. Let me look into what biggest issue, no big difference in but just by calming down. Yeah, nice, Min. Help you helps get on general co-work. Yeah, I like that. That's very good as well. You know, like the self-compassion and saying like, hey, you know, things are a little bit difficult. But if Billy, if you have to say I'm having ear issues, you need to be talking louder, then you might really want to go to the audiologist because there might be a little bit of a hearing loss that you could be benefiting from a hearing aid. Also, the most important thing, here's a really big tip. You don't need to spend $3,000 to get adequate hearing aids. There are entry-level hearing aids for a few hundred that can absolutely do the same that the high-end models can, and they will help you as well. So you are the customer and the consumer, and you have the choice of saying, I want this, and I'm willing to pay for it. What can you give me for it? And you can try different things. You can try a high-end model, you can try a medium-end model, and you can try an entry-level model, and then you can decide for yourself what is the best option. But there has to be a model at a lower price range that's nearly equally as beneficial, because then it doesn't have any AI technologies or certain range detection and whatnot features that many people don't even need. So you have the opportunity and you are allowed to tell and go to an audiologist. And if the audiologist doesn't offer it, and if he refuses to sell you cheaper hearing aids, go to a different one. And an impartial hearing aid specialist should tell you, you don't need the most expensive ones. You can go with an entry model. It can give you the same kind of benefits. Maybe it doesn't have Bluetooth, but if you don't want to spend as much money on hearing aids, you don't need to. I obviously did, because I'm deaf on one ear. I need the best hearing aid, in my opinion, that I can get. So my hearing aid was, I think, 1,500. So I get a little bit off because my health insurance here in Germany also pays a part. It would have been, I think, 2,000 euros, but I paid, 3 or 4 years ago, I paid like 1,500. So like next year or the year after, it's time for a new one. Yeah. Okay, good that your hearing aids specialist and ENT said that your hearing is perfect. That's very good. Yeah, then the benzo withdrawal is your biggest bet. And just know it takes time, man. Be there for yourself. Be self-compassionate. We have a big space in the community where self-compassion makes a big difference. Be self-compassionate with yourself that you're struggling. It's very common. It's normal. It's not uncommon to struggle with this and for tinnitus to ramp up as your anxiety ramps up. But know that your short-term pain that you're having now from the benzo withdrawal and the anxiety is in the face of long-term gain, right? The long-term gain is you're not dependent on the benzos anymore. Your anxiety will naturally calm down again, and then you will be living life in a much better, much happier way than having to be dependent on these bloody benzos. I trust me. And so you're going short-term pain for long-term gain. Very important, not only in the gym, but also with many other things. So the last thing I want to be talking about, if you guys don't have any other questions, I want to talk about how the brain can learn to filter out tinnitus and deprioritize it. And it's like turning tinnitus into a common background noise. And I talked about this like often. I say like, you move to a new place next to a busy highway and you hear a car every single time, but then eventually your brain starts filtering it out, right? And why is that? At first, the brain is not used to the new sounds, and your ears are used to detect, threats even when you're asleep. That's why, for example, women are a lot more sensitive to certain high frequencies in sleep because they have to hear their babies. So, right, our brain is also there to survey if everything is fine and the sense of hearing when we are sleeping. So when we are living next to a busy highway, at first it's very normal that you have trouble sleeping. But then your brain adapts to it, and then you no longer have trouble sleeping. But when people come to visit you, they're like, oh, this highway, I couldn't sleep all night, right? Or when you go to a new place and there are new sounds, your brain wakes you up more often to make sure that you're safe. It's a survival mechanism. Unfortunately, the brain is 10,000 years old. Yeah, 10,000 years ago, we got a last update. My iPhone got one this morning. So technically, my iPhone gets 100% more updates than my brain. I'm also locked without an update until this body doesn't exist anymore. Probably. Let's see what Elon Musk has to say to that, but I wouldn't trust that guy with my body. Who knows? Later on, I'm driving Uber and I don't even want it. Then I don't have a YouTube channel anymore. I'm driving Uber for Elon because Neuralink makes me do that. Anyways, hopefully I don't get sued from Elon now. No, what I want to say is like the brain, has the ability to build that new neural connection that tinnitus becomes something non-bothersome. It disappears into the background. And there are many of those techniques that we do, for example, in the club, that we discuss in the weekly coaching sessions, that I help people set up in my one-on-one coaching programs, like 4 sessions, 6, 8 sessions, or 12 sessions. That's one-on-one program that I also have, what I do as a coach. And I honestly and truly believe that everyone can achieve this, and everyone that I work with has eventually or is eventually achieving it. And therefore, I just wanted to repeat saying that, the biggest problem is that, many people chase the next thing instead of focusing what actually works. Acceptance and commitment therapy and CBT work because it teaches you that you can live your life in the presence of tinnitus, not going from searching for one cure and another cure and another cure. And then when one thing doesn't work out, you get even more upset and anxious. right? And then this perception of your tinnitus is even more amplified and becomes louder again, right? Because something else has failed. And acceptance and commitment therapy will teach you that you can live your life exactly the way you want, in spite of the presence of your tinnitus. And when your brain learns that that's okay, and the anxiety can come along, and there's a specific plan, specific guidance inside the program, such as the 8 weeks course to habituation or a 2 days retreat that I recorded 1.5 years ago, that you can watch and get access to inside the club. That's in the premium subscription included. But it's really, really, really important that you work with what actually works, not falling for all this ginkgo biloba, herbal drops, hearing aids if you don't need them, spending money on unproven treatments instead of science-backed strategies, really. And it's really, really, really important. I want to give you 5 practical strategies and ways that you can implement right now when we finish our live stream. So I've put this little link up here, and you will find this link also in all of my under all of my videos. And I'm just going to share my screen very briefly. I need to find the icon now. My camera is not allowing me to see the icon that I want to share. All right. Hope you guys can see my screen now. Oh, yes, infinity screen. Very nice. So I put this link up here. First one is obviously to my YouTube channel. I think subscribe, of course, hit subscribe. Tinnitus one-on-one, what you need to start to start healing. I think if you watch any of these videos will be very, very useful. The past live streams, I think, were also very beneficial for many of you. The second thing that I have is a free email course. It's 4 days of emails. They're just really nice to get you in sort of like the mindset of understanding what habituation and acceptance and commitment therapy are, for example, about, introducing a little bit my program, the coaching, but also the community. And it's just a good place to start if you're interested in a free resource. Then I have the Digital Relief Starter Kit. What it looks like, there are a few resources inside the Digital Relief Starter Kit. Let me show you. Digital Relief Starter Package. There are 3 learning videos, an intro to habituation, how acceptance and commitment therapy can transform your life, and then really practical tools and strategies of acceptance and commitment therapy to put into practice. There are some sound therapy files because I know some people still want sound therapy. So I'm like, okay, I'll give you sound therapy. So you get some 10 hours files that you can download for free and listen to on MP3. If it helps you in the short term, no problem. It's free. It doesn't cost $3,000, and you can just use headphones or speakers or whatever you want. But more importantly, you get worksheets, for example, a tinnitus roadmap to habituation that really tells you what you can do in order to habituate and what you might be trying and putting different steps together, and a daily practices worksheet, next steps for relief. And that's basically it. We also have a couple of success stories that are uploaded just for you here. They're, of course, also here on my channel. So I have another playlist, which is called, I think, Success Stories, Recovery Stories from some of the people that I've been working with. And that's quite cool as well. And I can recommend you guys listen to those because it will tell you why acceptance and commitment therapy is so powerful and how some of the people that I've worked with have put it into practice. And one of the last things that I want to recommend, I have emergency tinnitus consultation. So if you're really, really struggling and you need to speak to me quickly, I have a 1.5 hours emergency consultation, or you join our waiting list. I have a one-on-one coaching program where I work over Zoom with people one-on-one. And if you are wanting to get added to the waiting list, I open a few spots every month. Since I had burnout last year and things were a little bit more difficult, I'm limiting this to between 5 and 10 members, depending on how I feel. People are informed when they are on the list of who gets the next spots. So check all those resources out. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And check out mytinnitus.club as well if you want to. That's, of course, I wanted to mention this one, the coolest one. But I think this is self-explanatory. You can go to www.mytinnitus.club. Many of the members enjoy this quite a lot. So Make sure to check that out as well. Let me stop the screen sharing. Oh, not yet. No. End the sharing, not the live stream. Okay. All right. Only 10 minutes over. Last week or 2 weeks ago, I think we were 20 minutes over. There's one final thing that I forgot to say. If you enjoy this channel and you enjoy watching these lives, I'm not selling very expensive hearing aids, and it's important for me not to be doing that. But everyone always thinks that if you have an online business, you become this very rich person, which is not true. I also have to pay my rent and my apartment and my health insurance, and it's expensive. So if you do want to support me and the work that I do here on YouTube, for example, doing these lives for free every couple of weeks, we are now at 3 out of 5 planned members who support me on a monthly basis for $9.99. If you do support me for $9.99, you also get the Digital Relief package that I showed you right now for free. And you can get that on the channel. So when you click on the channel, it says become a member. And if you do become a member, you help me, because I am not someone who sells thousands of dollars worth of hearing aids. I try to be as genuine as I possibly can. I try to help you guys, each and every single one, little by little. And I believe that that is the most honest and best way to go. So kamsahamnida. Thank you for becoming a channel member and supporting me. If you enjoy this content, and if you want to help me make more of this content in future, and if you want to be someone who supports me for me to continue doing exactly the living that I love doing. So thank you, it's very much appreciated. And yeah, I think we don't have any other questions. Let me just look. Yes, I think that's it. I think we're done for today. Very nice, lovely. So for all of those who are in the stream and who are community members, I'll see you tomorrow in the Finding Joy event. It's going to be really nice. We're going to get into breakout groups again and discuss what different topics you have, sports and movement, books and arts, and all of these kind of things, like what brings you joy, and how can that further your habituation process. And I'm talking a little bit about neuroplasticity tomorrow in the meeting as well at the start. And yeah, then I'll see you guys over there. I hope it was useful for you guys. Thank you very much for joining the live stream today. To all of you out there, I hope and I know that you are getting better. Everyone can habituate. You will habituate too, no matter how loud or bad your tinnitus currently is. We have faith in you. I have faith in you. I've done it with my one deaf ear and my hearing aid and severe tinnitus. So you can absolutely do it too. Alrighty, guys. From my heart to, sorry for the microphone bump. From my heart to yours, I wish you a good rest of the week. I'll let you know in the community tab when the next live stream is. Maybe next week, maybe in 2 weeks' time. But you'll get an email also when you are on my email list. And yeah, thanks. It was lovely to catch up with you guys. Lovely to see your comments. Lovely to see you guys supporting each other. And yeah, thank you for being here. Okay, guys. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.